Good afternoon, everyone. Otherwise, we might be running out of time. My name is Dr. Garrett Brains. I am the Associate Dean of Academic Programs for the faculty, and that means I oversee and chair the entire undergraduate program and its curricula. So it means that I am supposed to be the one who has intimate knowledge on what it is you'll be doing and how you'll be doing it. My rule of thumb is quite simple. If I talk, then I ask that you keep silent. If you ask a question, then I will listen. Shall we agree on that?
So that
Thank you. Who said yes? Fantastic. Today, I want to talk to you about those who are thinking about enrolling for what we call one of the specialisms, or two of the specialisms called environment and interior design. This falls under the cluster called environmental design because it really asks larger questions. In this talk, I hope to give you a little bit of background about what E&I, what we call environment and interior design, E&I does, what you need to or should expect, and also what you need to do in order to enroll or to sign up. And that means what... Are we good? It also means that it's going to address things like portfolio and the interview and what you put in the portfolio. Yeah? You okay? You look quite shocked, don't be. So let's tackle this. And if you have questions in the end, hopefully I can answer them. First of all, welcome to the school. You've already had a general introduction downstairs, but also welcome to your future. We truly and mostly believe that this is the moment that is a defining section of your life, because this is where you decide what you will be doing for the next few years. The general theory is that when you turn 30 and you do something, that you will be doing that for the rest of your life. And this is no easy or light choice, because it means that it will involve your commitment, it'll involve your time, and it'll involve basically also family support. So whatever you choose, whether this is this program or specialism, whether it's any of the other specialisms, it is important and it does matter. But the thing is this: you are old enough, believe it or not, and I'm sorry for the parents who are in the room, you are old enough to have babies, you are old enough to start families, you are old enough to make choices on your own volition, so it means you need to take responsibility for your future on your own accord. The future is what you make of it, so no matter what the tutors do, no matter what they say, the more you give, the better the outcomes will be in the long run. And I know we have a lot of parents in the room, we have faculty and staff members who are parents, so believe me, we know what we're talking about. So the real question for you at this moment is, why should I choose the School of Design? Because first of all, you must understand that as a school, as an institution, as a faculty, we are still under the top 20 in the world. It means that whatever we do, how we do it, and through the means that we do it, it is recognized by international peers as being one of the top in the world. The strange thing is that it's not just the faculty, but it's also the things that we do in the faculty that is receiving recognition internationally. We get reports from other schools, for example, in London, about the things that we teach in E&I, which means that they know that what we are doing and they are watching us. We're fully aware that in this digital age, everyone sees everything. So it means that whatever we do here, it has to be done with such quality that it makes people in London or America actually sit up and notice. And I think this is one of the top reasons that you can also say why choose this school. Second of all, we have a lot of facilities that in comparison to other institutions are really good. And it's not because I am affiliated to this institution, but I can say that I have compared. I have seen facilities in institutions in China, I've seen facilities in institutions in Europe, I've seen them in America, I've seen them in Australia, I've seen them in South Africa, and I've seen them in places like Colombia and Brazil. And if I compare to what you have here, believe me, it is still some of the most accessible facilities and possibly the most up-to-date and current. One of them, of course, print shops. Usually, design schools like Hong Kong DI, Hong Kong U, they have to outsource their print facilities to other companies. We don't have to do that. It just does mean that we give extra work to the people running it, but we are happy to do so. We have a material resource center that annually updates its archive as well as its catalogs. And that gives you direct access to what is happening in terms of material, and does it actually provide any other assistance in terms of design development. Let me give you a little bit of a hint. Chinese university architecture students, they get sent here because they don't have it. So they ask me, can we get permission to get 30 students in the room in order to come and see your material resource center? Because even our program, Chinese U, we don't have it. We need to see what you have. The Fab Lab. This is something that's been really in development over the last 4 or 5 years, where we see a lot of investment in robotic arms, 3D printing, and similar technologies. We've had, since I can remember, we've had access to facilities such as laser cutting. But when it comes to spatial design, E&I can say that we have now upped our game, that laser cutting does not save the world. We are certainly pushing students to start thinking about CNC milling, 3D printing, and of course other forms of materialization or testing. But it means that if you, as a student, when you sign up, you get access to these things. It means that you book it, you use it, there's a fair use policy involved in that, and it gives you a better type of experience in terms of testing and iterating every possible scale of spatial design. The production workshops, I think, again, the advantage is here in this faculty, the workshops and everything is in the same building. If you were studying in engineering, you would probably have to go to the industrial center. And that is an external, again, faculty, space and service that is outsourced between various departments. In SD, that is not the case. It literally means you take your work, you get into the elevator, you go down to the first floor, and you have direct access to this. There's a 24-hour system in place when it is operational, and it allows you to store some of the materials there, but it is a very convincing moment that whatever we are doing is not necessarily just theory, it is really hands-on design work. Everyone still with me up until here? Are we good?
Yes.
Oh, but Gerhard, I just want to do 3D printing. Good for you. Good news for you is we've upped our game. We now have about 30 3D printers in one room downstairs. They vary in skill, they vary in technology. They vary in skill, they vary in technology, but what it does is it means that if you're a beginner, you start testing out this is a technology that advocates whether you are doing interior design, whether you're doing product design, communication design, service design, social design. You start testing it slowly and you work your way up through this whole process of 3D printing. Do not think, again, that 3D printing is the end-all and be-all of design processes in E&I. It helps, but it's certainly not, it doesn't give you the golden egg, right? It is something that you have to motivate through critical and analytical thinking. Good. Photography studio, yes, it's a huge advantage if you have access to all the photographic equipment that you can borrow on a weekly or daily basis. It also means that there's other recording devices that you can borrow in order to either document work, either conduct research, but at the very least, you can photographically things between, I would say, 3 millimeters up until 3 meters in dimension. And it does happen, ladies and gentlemen. Do not live under a false impression that when you join the School of Design or E&I, that everything is about small miniaturized models. We in E&I actually advocate also for one-to-one testing. And that means that when you design things, you have an opportunity to design for the very small, but also for the actual in-use functionality of that thing in space. You can do a door at full scale. You can do a table, a whole set of tables, chairs related to space, one-on-one. We encourage this because it means that it makes your design more valid, accessible, but also it gives you a better understanding of design competencies as you work your way through the design years. When we talk about media production, it also means that more and more, a lot of these facilities are in support of a variety of design domains. Usually it would have been digital media that only would use the studio. What we are seeing at E&I is a lot of design work being generated through virtual reality and augmented reality that somehow requires the green screen in order to model certain spatial effects or experiences. Do not think when you see all of this that design is intuitive and design is all about aesthetics and it's only about aesthetics or it's only about product design. I think you need to understand that there's one other design fields, there's other technologies, but it also means that we can read and borrow from other technologies in other fields in order to bring it and make it part of our own. It is also why I believe that E&I, and I will later talk about it, is one of the most critical disciplines in the school because it actually captures everything. Think about that. Right. Here we go. For E&I itself, we really are a diverse group of individuals that teach students, I would say, in my view, one-on-one. If you were doing mathematics, if you were doing languages, if you were doing sciences, physics in year one, you probably will be in a room filled with 300 students and you will have one instructor, professor standing in the front, and you will go through the textbook and he or she will go through textbook and say, this is your task, these are the objectives, right? When it comes to design, it means that you will be in contact with the design tutor in a ratio of 1 tutor usually to 1 to 10 students or 12 students. That number varies per year, and it also varies depending on what the university requires us in terms of resources. But the advantage is you will discuss with your tutors directly. You will have access to lectures and experiences individually. Oi, at the back. Enough. Thank you. It does give you an opportunity to take your idea and put it in front of a tutor and say, I need to talk about this. It gives you that level of problem-based solving. No more, please. It gives you that level of problem-based solving where you can actually say, this is the problem I'm dealing with. This is my proposal of how I'm going to solve it. And this is how I want us to discuss it. And then you get the feedback from the tutors or the professors. In E&I, we are usually, if I roughly calculate, it's 100 students, right? From year 1 to year 4. We are 11 to 15 tutors. So you can do the math that actually inputs and directly feeds knowledge and expertise into the student groups themselves. So when we talk about the creative space, the space for possibility, the space for testing, the open-ended space for actually being able to assimilate architecture, interior tectonics, technology, other forms of social theories, this is the environment to do it in. And the tutors are really, really open-minded. They are very critical because it means that design is not something, as I said, that is intuitive in E&I. It has to follow steps. It has to follow a certain material protocol. And we teach those material protocols and we help the students develop those core competencies so that you can actually exit this program and go directly into practice. Bless. This is what you'll be signing up for. You've seen, who has seen this? Who has seen it? Okay, how this works? Very simply. You stream into year 1 on the far left. This is foundation year. This is where we say, look, with 100 other students who will later choose different fields and specialism, you need to be aware of what design does. Design is this, design does that. These are core foundational theories. We will start with small and important things. We will then slowly but surely increase the complexity of the problem. In the first year, you will learn from one another, you will learn from the tutors, and then 3/4 through the first year, you'll be asked, which of these clusters do you want to choose? And then the environment cluster is the one that deals with environmental design and interior design. So in year 2, you will then focus even more. It becomes typologically driven. That means the type of spaces, the types of interior, the types of environment that you can actually deal with. It will become scale specific, and we will teach you very professional skills, how to draw, how to translate, and actually give you software capabilities in order to help facilitate those translations. By year 3, we ask you to choose. You have a choice of these two, environment or interior design. You finish and in with a capstone project in year 4. Capstone project is usually in all design fields the ultimate assimilation of 4 years of knowledge. You must understand this. At the undergraduate level, you are master's level minus something. In the PhD level, in the master's level, you are PhD level minus, but bachelor's plus. So you're in that middle section. The same thing goes for the undergraduate year 4. When you enter capstone, the expectation is that you take everything you've learned from year 1, 2, 3, and 4, and bring it all together and say, this is the best of the best. So through this, I'm able to assimilate theory. I am able to talk about the history that I've learned. I'm able to actually take technology that I studied, and I can actually translate it through an issue that I materialize at one specific scale. I can draw it, I can make it, I can critique it, I can talk about it, and I can actually teach someone else to do it. And then better than that, I can directly apply for a job, right? That's always one of the key questions. But it means that this is the framework. This is the educational process that you have to go through to get here and graduate. Who of you have been on the 10th floor today? Oh yeah. No one. If you had been on the 10th floor, you would see these posters on the black walls if you exit the elevators on the right. This is basically what we teach you. These, I would call permanent exhibits, are there. We refresh them every year, and we update it with material from the year before. So it gives you guys a very insightful insight on what we've done in year 1, year 2, year 3, and in capstone. So if we look at year 1, the design process and iterative skills are important. This is what we will be focusing on. This is in that foundation year. It might not be spaces that you design from the start. It might be a way that we say, oh, make a model, then make another version of the model, then make another version of the model, then make another version of the model, critique the model, understand what you did, what worked between version 2 and 3, and say how it is better in the final version to what you had before. The iteration, repetition, the testing, this is part of design thinking at its core level. No matter what design field you choose, it is really essential in order for you to develop and move beyond from year 1 to year 2. When you get to year 2, it's all about industry standards and typological study. That means, what is the industry standard for drawing? And drawing spaces, documenting spaces, mapping spaces. What is the industry standard for building up a vocabulary to talk about space? What is the industry standard for understanding certain contractual processes? But it does mean that we then say you start focusing on what is the differentiation between this type of interior space versus that type of environmental space. Can you build a certain comparison between these two? And how do you build that in a scientific manner? I will talk about the issue of design sciences later. Year 3, now it becomes interesting. So you take all the skill from year 1, all the skill from year 2, And we now say, okay, let's up our game. Let's go virtual. How do we translate things that are physical into a virtual reality? What are the software required that we can use in order to make this translation happen? Do we need to only work with Rivet? Do we only need to work with AutoCAD? And in fact, we will say, actually, no, we prefer that you understand Rhino's 3D. Bring your Rhino skills, bring all those things. And by the way, do not learn SketchUp. Yeah. Yeah? A program that actually just sets you up for failure. Do it right. Start from day one. Understand Rhino. If you understand Rhino, your modeling capabilities will be beyond your competitors because, ladies and gentlemen, you are in competition from day one, not with people internally, but actually with the other design schools and spatial professions. Just a heads up. So when you start translating these things virtually, it means that you are now able to use virtual reality and experience design through all these other goggles that we now see that is available, right? So it means that the program is now pushing the boundaries beyond just the mere physical. And this is also a lot of times where students win awards and we exhibit a lot of this work. This is also making the transition between space and game design, space and service design, space and social design. It all comes back to this. Believe me, it's integral. Now, year 4, independent, self-directed. This is probably one of the most important years. Why? What is a mature student in capstone in year 4? One, it's a student who can actually do or conduct research. We help, we facilitate, we nurture, but it also means a student then goes out and conducts research. They go for it. It means that they are able to take the research, process it, and frame it as a design problem. They can independently write the brief. They have a very critical approach to what is working, what is not working. And remember, not everything has to work in design. A failed outcome is an outcome. And you can actually frame it in a way and say, I've advanced the design thinking through my testing. But that level of independent inquiry is what we wish all of you would have when you get to year 4. And the nicest thing for me as an educator is if I bump into students in year 4 and they are ready to argue with me about things. And I like it because it means that it's not for the arguing for the sake of arguing, it is actually arguing for the sake of developing an argument in a position that is critical, that differs from others, and they are able to say why it is different. And that I go, tick the box. So we have a thinker, not a follower. And I think that is important when it comes to spatial design. And it's for this reason that E&I is important because, and my other colleagues will not like it, but I'm going to say it anyway. Product design deals with a product. They deal with a table, they deal with a chair, they deal with a door handle. Social design will deal with a group. Service design will deal with facilitating certain industries. But here's the thing, they all need space. They all need to put it in space. They all are space dependent because this is the container and the context where we live in, right? So at some point in year 4, there's something called cooperative project where a real client comes in and says, I have this problem, I'm giving you the money, can the students do the design development for me? And then we say yes. Then you will be put in a team format with other disciplines. You will then develop the work. You will then present to the client. And the feedback we always get is, those E&I students that are really good, I'm like, you know, it's because we're really hard on them. Because in the end, it is about you being better than the rest. If you are better than the rest, then I've done my job. And it also means you are able to facilitate, you are able to critique, you are able to process data, you are able to manage yourself in terms of time. You don't play mahjong in the studio. Just taking is listening. But it means that as an individual, as a design individual, you have that independence. And we have students who leave and graduate, and then they start their own company. Or they go directly into a master's degree. It's very simple like that. Honestly, I really have, I never have a worry about E&I students graduating. So, to summarize, it is not, E&I does not operate on intuitive processes. If you go away and do work and come back and sit in front of the tutors and cross your arm and say, oh, I think this is the solution, the tutor will say, that's great, but I won't talk to you. I will talk to you when you have evidence on the table of how you conduct something or develop an idea. It means that it is research-based with evidence. What is the material? What are the steps you follow? We're not talking about patterns and fabrics and cushions. We're talking about real design sciences. Ladies and gentlemen, design has a science. It is a science. You need to understand that the amount of theories, the amount of methodologies, the amount of technology being thrown into design and being taken over by design is equally, I would say, on par with what engineering is doing. So the research component, we're really focusing a lot. A lot. The LiDAR stuff that engineers are talking about, we have projects running on that. Big data, AI, human-computer interaction, it's all design-based. My colleagues on the 9th floor, on the 8th floor, 6th floor, they're all using the high engineering stuff in order to validate their outcomes and research. And the same stuff, in the same way, we are feeding it back into the student work at the undergraduate level. We support intellectual diversity and independence, and it does mean that E&I is open, it's equal based, and it's an equal opportunity setting. That means no matter who you are, what your background is, what gender you are, it's equal opportunity for all. It also is that I can say with happiness that we have more female to male students in E&I. So that means that it's not preferring one gender or another. Usually spatial design was preferential if we talk about really 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s maybe. It was still very much male dominated. Now the coin is changing. It means that it allows opportunities for everyone to come in and try and test it. But it does not mean that it changes the emphasis. In fact, we are in strong competition with our competitors in Hong Kong in order to make sure that you have the best type of education. We focus on high value added design. And here it's important that when it comes to design, it is not just about the making of something, but in fact, and the physical, but also, and this is really important, that container which captures everything that you are designing has to do with human experience. That is why engineers can design things, but they don't have the social science dimension that we have. What do I mean by that? History, theory. And remember, this school operates on a very important premise. It's called human-centered design. That it's about the human and the individual that really drives the design inquiry. So engineering is engineering, fine. It has social value because it might solve economic issues. It might reduce material production. But when it comes to the human dimension, this is where we are at. This is where we are strong. And I think it's important that you understand that difference between engineering and design sciences. Okay? We do this because the people teaching you come from the top 50 universities in the world. We have 11 part-timers who help us that support a full-time faculty of 6 professors, associates, and assistant professors. The people we employ come from Harvard, they come from MIT, they come from Delft, they come from Cornell. That means that these people, these tutors have skills and they have a very specific contribution to make. Now, equally, because we've tested this and we've really gone through all the steps and see what works and what does not, it means that when our students graduate, they have no problem going back in to do a master's at Hong Kong U, a master's at Chinese U. Actually, one of those institutions keep emailing me saying, can we have an agreement that you just send your students to us for the masters? I go, no.
We
go. So and moreover, we have no problem in feeding the students back to institutions like Cornell, like MIT, like the Architectural Association in London. And that tells us that whatever we're doing is that we're doing it right, and it has visibility externally. So I think that if you are asking yourself what you can do after this, it's not just architecture, it is not just interior design, it is also landscape architecture, it is also urban design, it is also interior design, interior architecture. I mean, everything related to the spatial field. If you bring your A game, you will be able to get into other programs. I guarantee it. And the amount of letters we have to write in order to support this, honestly, every time we write it, they get in. So don't worry about that. As long as you really dedicate enough attention to getting your GPA and portfolio in a very good order. Now, when we talk about the differentiation between environment and interior design, we can actually, am I good on time? Okay. We can actually differentiate between scales, where we talk about environmental design in terms of larger scale, systemic focus, and the connection between design and the built envelope as wider systems of thinking and of material production. That just means environment design, you can actually look at much more than just the interior question alone. If you want to go the other route, totally fine. But that means that the specialization of interior design talks about the smaller scale, the artifactual focus. That means that the design of small individual items within the interior is a possibility. We're talking about furniture, fittings and assemblages, furniture, surface materials and textures. So even that the design of a texture is a possibility. I've had students who actually developed a whole project on pattern, and the pattern became the texture, and the texture was then fabricated into tiles, and the tiles were then made by accredited tile makers. So you can see these jumps being made from starting with a research idea going all the way through to actual production. And I know that we even have a student who's now making her own jewelry because of this whole production interest. So, remember I said to you that technology that the engineers are using over there, we are using exactly the same stuff. The 3D robotic arms we use to assemble and print objects, we have 2 BLKs to go scanners. Those are the handheld LiDAR scanners that we use in both research and teaching students how to use them. It means that there's a very strong connection between the research projects of individuals, and they bring it back into the classroom and say, if you want to do this, this is how you do it. If you want to do this, this is how you translate it. If you want to look at how people behave, maybe you can research it in this way, and then you can design objects for that through these technologies. So please, again, be very aware that it's not an intuitive thing. It has a science, it has a methodology, and it has a rigor, and it has a material scale. So already there, through the way that I've set it up, that is already a design project brief that you can define for anything. For anything. So, we really encourage you that if you are an independent thinker with a strong sense of space, and you really want to think about design, then join us. And I really mean it. I think there's a moment here, an opportunity here, that you can actually be part of a group, a cohort, and contribute something that will really change your future, that will really change and impact the way you think about space and design. But it's always more than that, because all of you are sitting here and thinking one thing. Oh, but Garrett, what do we need to do? What do I need to submit, right? How does a portfolio work? What are the entry requirements? Look at the phones going out. Let me explain to you what the actual practicalities are for you to submit. When you apply, you will be required to submit your GPA scores, of course, and transcripts, which is normal. Any institution would require that. But what you also would need is a portfolio, and that portfolio demonstrates who you are as a creative individual and what sets you apart from others. That portfolio, we encourage you to capture the most creative things that you've done over the last 5-6 years in one document. Do not send us the table itself that you've designed. Show us the images and the process through which you made the table. Here we define it maximum 50 slides with 25 megabyte size. But the questions we always get is, if I'm not creative, how do I make a portfolio? If you are a creative writer and you actually handwrite things and you have a notebook in which you write everything, take scans of the notebook, include that in the portfolio. If you draw, if whatever you draw, take that and put that in the portfolio. If you are a photographer, take the photos that you've documented and the variations of the techniques in the photos, put that in the portfolio. If now people will say, oh, but I'm not a creative individual. Says, okay, do you make sourdough bread? Are you a baker? Yeah. Do you cook? Yeah. Take photos of how you cook, put that in the portfolio. But here's the thing. When you do design in this sense, you have to frame it. This is a 9-step process that I followed. It actually examined this type of ingredient versus that type of ingredient versus this type of cooking. It really matters the way you frame whatever creative endeavor you're busy with. Believe me, we see a number of things. And the portfolio is that first moment of impact. Second of all, when you do the layout, oh God, I don't have access to InDesign. Use PowerPoint. Do your layout on PowerPoint. Easy, effective, can export it to PDF, no problem. 2, put page numbers on every page. If you want to hear me scream in a room, you don't put page numbers on a page. Then I will lose it. Because that's the only reference I have, and say, what did you do on page 9? What is this? What is that? It allows me to answer or to ask questions to you more directly. And finally, don't be quirky. Don't try and think you're going to be very artistic by writing the headings by hand. If I see that, I go, that's unprofessional. I chuck it out. More is not more. It is about the curation of the content. It is about showing exactly what you did. You can actually, if you have 20 photos of the same thing and you choose one, then I would say, in your layout, the final version is large, the other ones are small, and you say, this is process, this is final selection. That is how you curate the creative process. And show that to us, talk about that to us. When you write the statement, say why you are suitable for our program, and why you think that you'll be able to finish the course. Remember, it's not about to be tricky or complex or to try and catch you out. It is about trying to understand and have guarantees that when you enter the course, that you will complete it. For every place that we have available, one place, we probably have 4 applicants for one place. So we have to screen, ladies and gentlemen. So don't make it difficult for us. Make it difficult for us. Don't make it easy. If you make it easy for us, it's easy. We just chuck out. If you make it difficult for us, you actually make 8 or 7 people in a room freak out and say, oh, we have so many good applicants. If we have good applicants and they don't get into our discipline, then we recommend. We say, maybe this one, maybe this one, maybe this one. I've recommended students who come in and say, maybe better for fashion, better for this, better for that. But it's dependent on this thing called the portfolio. So please, don't let yourself down, and don't think it's going to be a last minute. If you have to submit at 1 a.m., do not start at 10 p.m. Start very early. Please, for the parents in the room, push this issue of time management.
Understood.
Interview. In person or online, it doesn't matter. You are required to do an interview. Why? Because this is the moment that I can see who the applicant is, and if what I see in the portfolio And in the application dossier is the same as the person sitting in front of me. That's just good checks and balances. But here's the other thing. I will ask you the question, why choose E&I? Why choose this? Why did you do that? I will prod for specific responses. Remember, the people who's doing the interview are experienced. That means that they understand processes of design, process documentation, photography, creativity, call it what you like. They know when the shortcuts are taken. So they will actually start saying, is this really you? Is this really working? So as soon as you have the interview as an opportunity, you can defend and explain things. It also gives you, the person who wants to come in, an opportunity right at the end to say, I have a question to you guys, you professors. And you're allowed to ask a question because it's a match on from two ends. So ask the question. And I can tell you now, these are the questions we get. First question is, can I do a PowerPoint presentation when I start the interview? No. This is not a presentation, it's an interview. It's a discussion, ladies and gentlemen. Second question. So funny. Year one, they go, can I go on exchange, international exchange? They haven't even started the course and I already want to leave. Yeah. So the answer to that is yes. The university is encouraging international education experiences, but usually in work integrated learning, that means you go and work in an office somewhere, or you go on exchange and you spend a semester at another institution. But we also have to make sure that the quality of the program remains standard. So if you're a student who, I would say, if I can use the word, a slacker, who doesn't do as well or a little bit lazy, then why should we motivate this exchange to happen? If a very good student comes and says, look, I've done my part, I've contributed where I can, I've actually have evidence of good design work, then it makes it easy for us to say, go and have this experience because it'll make you a better designer. But it also means that sending out students who are not good is also not good for us, because it means that, does it mean we have to teach double the amount of information when you come back in order to get you back on the right standard? So do yourself the favor that from day one, just go for it. Yeah? Preparing your application is always important. Emphasize what your skills are. Emphasize what you're good at. And emphasize how this links to spatial, either interior or environmental questions. And that makes it, again, a very convincing argument for you knowing what it is you're signing up for. I'm going to be very honest with you. We've had applicants who say, I'm choosing this because my parents said I should. I'm choosing this because actually my parents told me I shouldn't do it, so I'm being quite brutal and I just want to go against what they want. Ladies and gentlemen, in both those circumstances, and I'm talking to the young applicants here, not the parents, I'm sorry, you are doing yourself a disfavor. Because it means for 4 years, you will be coming to an institution with a group of individuals and you will hate every minute of this experience. And if there's one thing I've learned is life is too short to have that level, that amount of anxiety and anxiousness of completing a course because someone else said you should or should not. You need to choose something that will really make you happy. As soon as you are fulfilled, challenged, and you find a certain sense of pleasure in what you're doing, your design work will, usually they say it's an 1-to-1 ratio of improvement, right? But when students really understand what they're doing, it goes exponential. That means it starts small, it starts off, and then all of a sudden it just shoots up. So the development based on you being a happy design student is something that we really thrive on. So please see it in the same way. Choose and know what you're signing up for. To the parents, I'm giving you a heads up. The students will be in the studio a lot. They may not even go home every night. They will be very intense. There will be moments of anguish at 4 a.m. coming from a room. There will be clutter of material lying around everywhere. But I can say this, the studio is there, and we really encourage the students to work in the studio. Why? They will learn faster from their mates next to them. 2, there's a space that they can make a mess. It's there. It's meant for that. It might be full or crowded, but it's there. 3, we take any precautionary measure to make sure that things are always in a safe situation. And 4, we really feel that allowing the students to work in the studio gives them a better, I would say, a better advantage than their competitors. So this also implies the amount of time, but also money spent on design materials. We don't have expensive textbooks. I'm on record, I know I'm being captured on 4 angles back there, but I will say we help alleviate the textbook expenditure, and we rather emphasize the expenses on materials for models and moral development. Heads up, it is part of this course, where physics would buy a textbook this thick and it will be 3, 4, 5,000 Hong Kong dollars. That money in this course and in design would go to material testing and things. There's a lot of scholarships available if we do international travel and training that supports the students, no problem. We also have a fair use policy that we want students, whatever they don't use, they put it somewhere that they can borrow from one another and reuse the material. So we've really thought about all of this in order to alleviate all the financial pressures that comes with studying design. Just a heads up. So if you see you know now the kids are not going to be at home all the time, they will be here. And no mahjong in the studio, huh? I'm just saying. So portfolio, a few examples. This is what it looks like. One example of a portfolio. This is from someone who studied with us. He finished. And you can see that this was part of the whole submission and argumentation of things that they've done. About how it actually, what their interests were. In this case, it was his. What their interests were, but also how they profiled it through certain social media streams. The sketches that came out of it, whether they travel and they just make these quick sketches, it's really part of a design expertise and skill, and we really want to see that. And also, whatever work comes from secondary school or even other experiences, where you do voluntary work, when you win an award, you package it in a very specific way. And again, look at the layout. It's not complicated, but it is clean, it is tidy, it is designerly, if I can call it that. The text, take care with the text, take care with how you write things, that you frame it. This morning I had a question about if I work in a group, can I include the work? Yes, but you need to give and write a disclaimer on what your part of the project was and what the other group members did on that project. So that when we get multiple submissions with the same group work, that we know who took care of what parts. Otherwise, technically, it is called stealing. Heads up. Need to disclaim it. Then, year 1. Yes. Welcome to, I love this because that doesn't represent a mess for me. It represents ideas. It represents exploration. It represents testing. And this is what design, the beauty of design is. Right? Oi, let's finish this. This is the way that we educate. Evidence-based work. You bring the material, we look at it, we review it. There you can see the 3 professors looking at it. Peter, that's Tommy, then you have Henry and Quo, and this is how they engage. And this is the discussion that happens between what you put forward and the feedback. And you are expected to respond to that and improve that and challenge that. Of course, Studio Live, you have what we call academic advising. That means every student is advised an academic advisor. Every student is assigned an academic advisor. If you have issues or challenges, you come to us. We then help you. We talk you through the problem with you. We always say at the beginning of the academic year, no problem is unsolvable. This is what we call iterative testing. The same thing, testing it, the scenarios that it develops, the materialization of it, how it actually works, how we actually externalize it in the environment, make it, test it, break it, challenge it, scale it up, scale it down. These are all part of the design issues. The way that we look at typology in Studio 2, this is all stilt houses in TIO that we survey. We take the students and they start documenting and designing for those environments.
Yeah. Great.
Here you can see how our students then go on to present work to international juries, and then they actually win awards. And then you have something like service learning or work integrated experiences where they go into actual field work. This is in Japan. Eastern study trip, we take students to either to Bangkok or somewhere. We formulate a whole program. We talk to designers in those settings, and we allow the students to talk to those designers directly. And of course, a lot of the work we do, we show it, we promote you, and we do it through various channels, of which the most important ones are usually, of course, Instagram, but also beyond. And we upload all the design work there for you to have a look at. Anyway, that's it. I really hope it answered some of your questions. If you have any more questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Remember, this is your future, so take time in making sure it's the right course for you. Right? Thank you. Have a good weekend.